Welcome to the Overrated Experience Sports and Sports Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Blondin. And when I say welcome back, it's been a while since we last touched base. The last podcast we had was talking about the preview to the NHL playoffs, which are in full swing. First round, with the exception of one series, is complete. And in today's podcast, we're going to talk about some of those first round matchups, some of those second round matchups, and some of the betting lines there. We're obviously going to talk about the Leafs and their downfall once again and what to do from here. And also look at some NBA lines. But it's really a sit back, let's summarize Sunday. I don't think that's going to be a catchphrase. I don't think that's going to be on a bumper sticker anywhere. Anyway, you can follow the Overrated Experience Sports and Sports Betting Podcast on Twitter at Overrated EXPER2. That's Overrated EXPER2. It doesn't cost you any money to follow, but I do want to get a tweet here and there to say, hey, I'm following because you have listened to the podcast and you decided to see throughout the week what I have to say. Wow, it's been a busy weekend. A lot of sports betting going on. And there are times where you can't lose a bet. And there are times where nothing is going right for you. What side of the fence am I on that? Well, this weekend, I am on the side of nothing going right for me. No matter what angle I am taking, I am struggling this weekend to come up with some winners. And I'm hoping that changes as the week progresses and we get into the second round of the NBA and NHL playoffs. But first, let me talk about, about those Toronto Maple Leafs. Why do I talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs? Well, because I live in Toronto. Why? Because that's what we do. We focus on the Leafs. We get our hopes up, and they get dashed. The Toronto Maple Leafs lose in Game 7, 2-1, in overtime, to the Boston Bruins again. This is the 8th year of the Austin Matthews / Mitch Marner / William Nylander run. And what we have to show for it is one playoff round victory, and that was last year where they made it to the second round. They got pasted by the Florida Panthers. So looking back in this series, the Leafs quickly found themselves down 3-1 against the Boston Bruins. And what we seen here was typical Leaf fashion. They're getting their wheels blown off by the Bruins, outplayoff strategic maneuvers by the Boston Bruins, where they're playing playoff hockey, heavy hockey, forechecking, can't breathe on the power play. The Leafs sucked on the power play. And when you look at a team like the Leafs, where they're built on offense, they've allocated all of their salary cap to 4 guys that are meant to produce offensively 5-on-5, but especially with the man advantage. And they were not doing that. Their power play absolutely looked like ass, okay? Absolute horrible. So the Leafs are down 3-1. Typical Leafs, that they can't transition their game into the playoffs. And then we get the news that Austin Matthews cannot go for Game 5. What does that mean for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Well, I'll tell you what that meant. That meant a significantly different looking team that we've seen in Game 5, and it turns out Game 6 without Austin Matthews. What the Leafs transitioned to and forced, and I'm going to circle back to this, forced to transition to was more of a scrappy, hard-hitting, put the puck on net, force the play, forecheck, and rely on Max Domi, Tyler Bertuzzi, Matthew Nyes, those guys. And guess what? In net, they went to Joseph Woll, and he stood on his head. So just by accident, pure coincidence, when Austin Matthews was out due to injury, we don't even know what the story is still, and we'll find that out, I'm assuming. This team looked like they had the plan to hang in the playoffs, to hang with the Bruins. And for Game 5, Game 6, in much of Game 7, the Leafs gave the Bruins a lot of trouble. And you'll notice I didn't say Mitch Marner. I will say Willie Nylander, coming up with big goal after big goal. All right? I didn't say Johnny T, even though he had a nice, he's okay. John Tavares, the captain. But not at the level we expect or wanted him to be when he joined the Leafs, 6 years ago? So a lot to be desired, a lot to think about. And as we headed into Game 7, we found ourselves in a similar scrappy game. First 2 periods, no goals. Austin Matthews is back. Just by the way, side note, Austin Matthews is back. Jonathan Wall, gone. He for some whatever injury, could not show up, could not even back up. Big blow. Samsonov net. Yada, yada, yada. Leafs go ahead, 1-0 in the third. Quickly give up the equalizer, 1-1. They're still in this hockey game. And we go in overtime. And what we got was quickly in the overtime. Lindholm, defenseman, set play. Pasternak, off the backboard, scores 2-1. Season over. Once again, Leafs cannot knock off the Boston Bruins. The final goal tarnishes the game that Samsonov had. I don't know what he was doing or not doing by playing the puck off the board and being aggressive. Basically pissed away his great night. Let's be honest. I don't care what he did up to then. That's his job. But to have a brain cramp where he doesn't come out, play the puck, and let David Pasternak play it off the end boards and beat him, unacceptable. And we're too late in this 8-year process for this Leaf team to be cut any breaks. And here's what's going to happen. Watch. You watch. And the Leafs can go one of two ways. I am more impressed by the Leafs the way they play the last 3 games than I have in the last 7 years previous. Because they didn't get their doors blown off. They put in an honest effort. And they didn't get a bounce. And they had a brain cramp decision by a goalkeeper. And they lost. So the Leafs finally played playoff hockey for 3 games. All right? And there's no doubt when we talk about playoff hockey, we can't ignore the fact that this game is different. You've seen in the first round of the playoffs, where maybe the first 3 or 4 games, we've seen regular high-scoring games. The last 3 games have been very low-scoring, whether it be the Leafs, Vegas, Dallas, Vancouver, Nashville. Scoreless going into the third period because it's so tight. Goaltenders are standing on their head. There is no time to get a shot off compared to the regular season. Okay? No time. So you got to take every advantage you can. But don't ignore that is a reality, that playoff hockey does exist. It's not a myth. Okay? It's not a myth. And yes, do the referees let a lot go? I agree. However, there's no ignoring that seems like there's 8 guys aside on the ice during playoff time. There is no time. Okay? So the reality is, if your goal is to be a Stanley Cup champion, let's look at it from that lens when we talk about this Leaf team and what's next. All right? So let's look at this team. During the Kyle Dubas era and the Brendan Shanahan still era, the decision was we will go top heavy in the salary cap. We will allocate to Austin Matthews, to Mitch Marner, to William Nylander, and John Tavares the majority of the salary cap and bank on those horses to get us where we need to go. And I'm going to assume what they mean by that is where we need to go is to win a Stanley Cup. Okay? That was the goal. And that should be the goal. Okay? And the reality is, where are we today? Where are we today with that goal? Okay? So, looking forward, what do you have left? Well, you've decided over the last couple of years to keep this core together. You probably held onto your hand a lot longer than you should have and devalued whatever you had in your disposal to get bodies back or make significant change. All right, that's simply the way it is. They've made an error judging the talent that they had if the goal was ultimately the Stanley Cup. So, what should I expect from this team? And if their goal is to win a Stanley Cup at some point? One, the realization that the current makeup of this roster, not all of it, but certain pieces, in a finite, cap where you only have certain space, is not good enough to win the Stanley Cup. Not good enough to reach the ultimate goal is the Stanley Cup. So let's look at those pieces. Well, management. Brendan Shanahan on Monday who is the president of hockey operations, he's the guy in charge. He's the guy that brought in Lou Lamoriello. He's the guy that let Lou Lamoriello go to bring Kyle Dubas. And he's the guy that, parted ways with Kyle Dubas and brought Brad Treveling, former GM for the Calgary Flames. Brendan Shanahan has to have the honor to say, it's over, guys. Here's my resignation. It was a fun ride, but he has to fall on the sword. He has no more GM to fall on the sword. He has been a part and agreed to stick with the same core that just can't get the job done. Brendan Shanahan needs to hand in his resignation tomorrow. Simple as that. And if he doesn't, and he comes back with the same garbage, that this core, we believe in this core and we're coming back with it, I'm done. I'm done. Call me next year in the conference final if this team can make it, and then I'll start believing. But other than that, I'm done. I'm done with this team. Simple as that. Okay? Unacceptable if that is what we hear tomorrow or Tuesday, whenever the year-end press conference is. All right? Now, from a roster configuration, I can't speak to the salary cap and all the maneuvers there and no trade clauses. I haven't dug into that yet. But philosophically, what needs to be done is Mitch Marner's worn out his welcome in Toronto. It's done. That horse has ran its race. And ideally, he was the piece that probably should have gone last year. His value has significantly gone down. Where was he in the playoffs? All right? Was he impactful? Did he score that big David Pastrnak goal who was struggling and when it counted, scored that OT winner? Did he have his Nathan McKinnon moment? Did he have those McDavid moments? No. Because he's a no-show. He refuses to transition his game and or maximize his time on the power play. And results matter. I don't care about his floating around nice passes. He just is not worthy if you're thinking Stanley Cup big picture. So, if there's a market out there, you got to let him go. There has to be a team. 30 out of 31 teams, one of those teams he's got to agree to go to because you were stupid enough to give him a no-trade clause. But you have to be clear, the writing's on the wall to Mitch Marner, that the Toronto Maple Leafs no longer want you here. The fan base is sour on you. It is best that we both part ways. There has to be, out of 31 teams, a situation where another team wants to start fresh, make a splash, has a different mentality coming into the season, an owner who wants to make a significant change, where Mitch Marner and that team can marry. And if it comes to, even if it's just cap space and a late first round pick, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Obviously, maximize your haul, but you waited too long. You lowered the value of this asset. Okay? But he's got to go. And to be honest, let's go to Austin Matthews. I'm going to say it. You're not going to like it, but he's a fraud. Who cares he scored 69 goals? I knew this year that, wow, it was a nice chase, it was a nice story. But in the bigger picture, who cares? Who cares? Would you really take Austin Matthews over Nathan McKinnon? Would you take him over Matthew Tkachuk? And I said that last year, and I still stand by that today, of the Florida Panthers. Would you really? For what? One solid game 2 in this series And then nice assist. Where was he? Where did he significantly carry a team? He still hasn't over 8 years. I mean, if you really want to shake things up, there is somebody out there that will obviously take Austin Matthews. And I'm not against the idea of moving him for the right price. Because he's not winning a Stanley Cup. I'll tell you that right now. And another guy. I ain't going to mention John Tavares because nobody's taking him anyway. Okay, so let's not even go there. If some sucker out there is willing to grab him, and he's willing to go, obviously, but he can't be your captain. He can't be your captain. He's a robot. What is he? He's done nothing. He's got the stupidest interviews after a game that you hear from a captain that he's from 1986. You know, every cliche in the book. He has no personality. Nothing. Zero. Stop talking to Mitch Marner too, media. I don't care what he has to say. That guy, he's so bitter and always that he's got something to, you know, he's got a chip on his shoulder. I'm done with it. I don't care. So let's focus on okay, let me throw out a guy that I don't think everybody's going to agree with as well. If there's a Morgan Riley suitor out there, I'd also recommend that we explore that too. I mean, honestly, I could do without Morgan Riley. He is an average defenseman at best. What is he offensively? He doesn't have a booming shot. He is a 3-4 pairing on the blue line. I know they got him at a decent cap hit for a defenseman, but he's got a decent cap hit for a 1-2, not a 3-4, and that's what he is. Let's not kid ourselves. He can't be on your power play. I don't know what he is. He's average. But if he's an asset to move him. He's an average defenseman, folks. He's not that good. He's simply not. He's not going to get you where you need to go. Or he's not going to be a guy that you don't pick up the phone and decide, well, I'll make that move. He's not a no negotiation player that you got to keep. Let's not kid ourselves. He's not that guy. Where this team has some options or has, opportunity here, is you're really seeing that maybe if you want to keep this going and try to make a run, and you probably keep Matthews, and you got Willie, get rid of Marner, get rid of Riley. If anybody wants to take Johnny T, go for it. You got to focus on making sure that Tyler Bertuzzi's back. You got to make sure that Max Domi's back. And you really got to put some eggs in the basket on Matthew Nyes having a significant role in this team like he did in the playoffs. He showed his worth, and his game translates much better to a playoff series than Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner, and that's simply the way it is. He's a power forward. He's getting better. He's probably going to put more size on, but he's the guy you got to ride in the playoffs. It's simple as that. Simple as that. And then you got to decide that Joseph Woll was fantastic. He was a difference maker. They don't make it out of Game 5 or Game 6 without his net mining, his big saves that he made. Significant saves at significant portions of the time of these games. Well, you have to decide that he is injury prone. He missed significant time this year, which probably cost him the start of the series this year with Samsonov starting. And then waking up with an injury. Like, I know that's out of his power, but that's such a letdown. That you're sitting there, 15 minutes to the game to find out that Samsonov starting and Wall can't go. What a letdown that is. That's such a significant letdown. Samsonov played well, made some big saves, but not when it counted in overtime. Simple as that. Would have Wall made a difference? Probably. Or at least I would have liked to see it. So going forward, this team, Shanahan needs to put his resignation on the table, move on. From a roster perspective, Mitch Marner's got to go. I wouldn't be sad if Austin Matthews was gone because I don't care what he does in 82 games. I don't care. I don't care if he scores 100 goals. I don't care. Okay? I don't care. He is a no-show for 8 years in the playoffs. And stop people apologizing for him. He's a fraud. If your goal is to Stanley Cup, Austin Matthews is a fraud, and he's a regular season, he's a regular season Hall of Famer. Simple as that. That's what he is. He's a no-show. His game does not translate. He can't adapt. He's overrated. Simple as that. Okay? All right. So that's my story here on what I think of the Leafs, on how it went, how it's got to go, on what the next steps should be. So we're going to transition the podcast over to the rest of the NHL playoffs. And I'm going to tell you something, guys. As much as we've seen great drama in, let's say, the Leafs series, the Jets Predator series, Vegas Dallas series, I'm going to raise a red flag here. Red flag. If these series continue to be scoreless after two periods on a consistent basis, potentially have long dragged out overtimes outside of the local markets that have a real reason to watch, you're gonna find off as we get to the nice weather that viewership and people talking about the playoffs is going to die out very fast. I get it. The game changes. I just talked about it. Talked about the Leafs building a roster that is able to handle those changes. But if the fact is that these games turn into 0-0, 2-1 games, you're going to get bore fest from the people that are not watching, for the sake of, this is my city. I'm a Leaf fan trying to watch New York and Carolina. I'm a Leaf fan trying to watch Vancouver and Edmonton in the next round. Nobody's going to watch. And that's a flag to me. And I said that earlier last night on Twitter, or maybe 2 nights ago on X. I got some blowback on that. Oh man, this is a fantastic Dallas Vegas game here, 0-0 after the second period. Yeah, there's some moments there. But when we drag on 2 weeks from now, is that what you want to see? Is that are you not entertained? No, I'm not. I'm not entertained by that. And there's my accent from the Gladiator. It was English, even though it's Rome. I don't know. Whatever. So I'm not going to be entertained if these games turn out like that. So we'll just mark that down and please embrace that thought and think about it as we go further into the NHL playoffs. And as we go further into the NHL playoffs, we kick off all the second round look-aheads here. Obviously, the Dallas and Vegas series is wrapping up tonight, 7:30 p.m. puck drop here on a Sunday night. This is a weird one. These are two good teams. Dallas looked to... If you asked me 2 games into the series, I would have wrote the Dallas Stars up, blown this roster up. They looked old. The Joe Pavelskis, the Tyler Sagans, the Jamie Benns all looked like they were done. Okay? And Jake Ottinger did not look like the Jake Ottinger I know or seen at the end of the year. However, on the road, things change. They go to Vegas, win 2 games, come back home, win the third, and then we go back to one of those 0-0 games into the third period before Noah Hannafin scores and an empty netter. Vegas ties it up, and we go to Game 7. One of these 2 teams is going to make a run, but they got to go through the Avalanche next. What do we got here in this Game 7? Well, we're in Dallas. Vegas Golden Knights are defending Stanley Cup champions. I think they got a little more ice in their veins, and plus 128 money line might be a play here. The Vegas Golden Knights have more ice in their veins. There is flags to me that obviously they're bouncing back and forth for Hutton and Aiden Hill in net. I don't know who's going tonight. So Vegas, unlike last year's playoff run where Aiden Hill was the guy and they were running with him, they seem a little more skeptical on who they're going to put in net. And would this be an opportunity for Jake Ottinger to stand on his head, make his mark? Yeah, it could. So I'm like 51% sure that the Vegas Golden Knights are the play here. And then as we get into the series, playoff series, and it also starts today, this afternoon, Carolina, who, by the way, is the Stanley Cup favorite right now at plus 410. They are odds-on favorite. Behind them are the Edmonton Oilers, followed by the Florida Panthers. So when you look at this playoff series, Carolina should win this series, even though they are on the road. They don't have the home ice advantage that the Rangers do. Should they win this series? On paper, everything points to the Carolina Hurricanes advancing over the New York Rangers. But I'm going to take a different road on this one. I think it's the Rangers' time. I think when you look at Carolina, I am not sure about what Freddie Anderson in net is going to provide the Carolina Hurricanes. Don't get me wrong, Freddie Anderson is a good goaltender, but he has time, whether it be in a Leaf uniform or a Carolina Hurricane uniform, been unreliable. And I just somehow see in my crystal ball of things that are going to happen where he is going to give up a soft goal or two, where Rob Brindamore, coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, is going to have a shadow of a doubt in this series. Do I go with him in a key pivotal role here as the series drags on? And you have the Rangers with Shesterkin, where opportunity is up that he could just jump on board and take this series. The Rangers are well-rounded. They got everything going for them. And at plus 122, I do like the value of the Rangers in the series, and I'm going to go with the Rangers. It's going to happen. Going to go with the Rangers. I'm not going to bet this, but I'll say the Rangers in 6. Plus 680 you can get them for. But Rangers plus 122, I can get behind. Sorry, make that 132. My apologies. This is old man eyes where the reading is a challenge. So 4 o'clock today, the series kicks off. Go Rangers. And is there anything better in the NHL playoffs when you got MSG rocking right now? MSG, when the Rangers score a goal and the crowd's going nuts and they got, oh, hey. That's you can't get better than that. Okay? Amazing. So Rangers in 6, but just take the Rangers, whatever the way they win the series. I got that. Now for you Leaf fans, the heartbreaking, because soon as Saturday night's game is over, 2-1 in overtime, the Boston Bruins only have 48 hours before you'll see them on the ice in Florida to take on the Florida Panthers in the second round. This is the heavyweight matchup. These are the two best teams, to be honest, in the Atlantic Division. And, Leafs are well behind. The Leafs are just... Now I'm getting like bitterness about talking about the Leafs, that you're not even close to these two teams. I'm sorry. But these are the two teams that deserve to be here in this next round. The Boston Bruins are plus 146. The Florida Panthers are minus 176 to win this series. And from a surface standpoint, the Florida Panthers are rolling. You know what I mean? They knocked off the Bruins last year in 7. They barely squeaked into the playoffs, but that seemed to spark, this Florida Panthers team to take it to another level. They wiped the floor with Tampa Bay. Let's not dance around it. They were much better. But Bobrovsky stood on his head, and when he gets into a zone, he is very, very difficult to get, to really figure out. From the Boston standpoint, Swayman has looked fantastic. Swayman looks very unbeatable as well. And you see the goals scored on him or deflections, tough shots where he's got to give up a tough rebound, not his fault. But the Florida Panthers can play that way to put Swayman in a tough position. And Boston looked very, let's say, average when the Leafs had to play that forecheck, throw pucks on net. And that's what the Florida Panthers do. They play heavy. They put the puck on net, and they play it much better than the Leafs would ever do. And the Florida Panthers are going to do it better, and they're going to give Boston a hard time. There's value here at plus 146 that the Boston Bruins can win this series, but I think the Florida Panthers do it, and I think that they can do it in. I'll just go 6 games. Let's go 6 games again, plus 200. Florida Panthers knock off the Boston Bruins. But should be a scrappy, probably low-scoring series. Now, here's an interesting series. All-Canadian matchup. The Edmonton Oilers and the Vancouver Canucks. I sat here a week and a bit ago thought that the Vancouver Canucks would probably mail it in, had a great regular season. Rick Tocchet done a great job in Vancouver, taking over late last season, coming into this season, having a great season, and thought when push came to shove in the first round, they may be satisfied with what the season was and the results there. Not so. Some big wins. Three goaltenders, and they still knocked off the Nashville Predators. Some big goals. Brock Besser, some big-time players there. Take on the Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers are second favorites to win the Stanley Cup at plus 450, while the Vancouver Canucks plus 1,300. By no means at all, do I see the Edmonton Oilers rolling over the Vancouver Canucks in any way. Now, Vancouver has home ice advantage. Edmonton's minus 250 in the series, and Vancouver's plus 202. I mean, is there value in Vancouver? Yeah, I do think so. Edmonton is not on paper. You know, they got the better team, I guess you would say. But do they? I mean, Elias Pettersson is a pretty good hockey player on the Vancouver side that hasn't really got his game going. What if he does? Brock Besser's been going. You know, Miller on the Canucks side is a significant player, and he's going to be an impactful guy. Quentin Hughes, a top offensive defenseman on the Canucks. This would be interesting. And really, this series may be more of the higher scoring type of series compared to the other series. So let's see what game one here tells us about this series. It's going to happen on Monday night. 5.5 minus 134. You might want to jump on it right now. This might be a 6 or more goal game. Okay? You might jump on it right now because it's not going to be, I see 6.5s in the future of this series. This is the one series where I could see things exploding. Okay? One series. But you need to get on it now. So, interesting stuff from an Edmonton Vancouver series. Am I going to take Edmonton with that much juice? Absolutely not. I'm not going to take this Edmonton Oiler team at minus 250 to win the series. What would I say this would go? I mean, series-wise, let's see. Is Edmonton going to squeak it out? Maybe. Are they going to squeak it out maybe in 7? Maybe this series goes 7 plus 225. I'll say it goes 7. I'm not even going to, you know what? I'm not even going to give you a winner. I'm going to say the series goes 7 and let the chips fall where they may. Okay? So that's the NHL preview. We don't know what we're going to see as far as Avalanche, either Dallas, Avalanche, Vegas. That's going to happen at some point. All right? So from as far as the NHL story goes, that's it. And that's my story in the NHL world. Move on. So we move on to the NBA. NBA playoffs. What can you say about them? There's some series have been quite the blowouts, quite the one-sided affairs. And then you got the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks, you know, I've heard others say maybe the most exciting playoff team in sport right now. Just the team you want to get behind. Jalen Brunson playing out of his mind. And it's hard to disagree with that. The New York Knicks taking out the Philadelphia 76ers in 6 games. If you had a story to write for the New York Knicks, a city to fall behind a team that obviously has not been doing as well as the New York Knicks world would expect over the last decade, multiple decades, this is the team to follow. This is the team that you're going to fall in love with, and you understand why. Jalen Brunson, you know, as came over from the Dallas Mavericks, free agent, got nothing for him from the Dallas side, has really carried the rock. And if you watch the series against Philadelphia, time after time, big shot, drive the lane, you know, just a guy that has put a team on his back. And then you have a situation where the Knicks front office has smartly, you know what, scattered talent around that you didn't think would step up maybe in a moment like this. But you have Josh Hart, who's hit some big threes at the top. Like he's been impactful. McBride, a lot of guys here. OG Anunoby. Now, obviously, is from a Toronto perspective, you can see that the NBA playoffs have been scattered with former Raptors making significant impacts to their teams, whether it be OG or Siakam in the playoffs. Even Kyle Lowry, I think he's on the back. You say the back nine, but he's on the 18th hole when he had a few highlights with the 76ers, but really he's done. He's not going to be an impactful player. But the Knicks team is significant. Big win over Philadelphia. They're going to take on an Indiana Pacers team. It's very unique, very intriguing as well, since they have knocked off the Milwaukee Bucks that played much of the series without Giannis. And then obviously Damian Lillard was in and out of the lineup, coming back from injury, could not hold off the Pacers in Game 6. And now we have a matchup between the Pacers and Knicks, two intriguing teams. One high-powered, depth-oriented team in the Indiana Pacers that put points on the board and don't stop or slow down significantly when they go to their bench, where the Knicks are grinding, possession, hard work, tough D, rebound with the small guys in the court, but yet out-rebound the Philadelphia 76ers. And we go into Game 1 on Monday night with the Knicks a 6-point favorite over the Indiana Pacers, and a +2 or a significant favorite in the series as well. Just lost my line. Let me 1 second get back to it. So the Knicks are a -265 series favorite, and Indiana is +210. As much as I like the Knicks, I do like the Knicks. And the Knicks team you want to see go on a run. And maybe the team that can give Boston a run for its money. Maybe. Boston might be too much until we get to the final. The Indiana Pacers provide value. Value at +210. They have a real team here. They have a real significant chance to overwhelm the Knicks offensively, but the Knicks in a situation where if they got to chase offensively, I don't think the Knicks can hang when they have to run and gun. But at the same time, if the Knicks turn this into a grind-out fight, then you got that ball in Jalen Brunson's court. But value, and I stress that, value. I'm not saying luck. I'm saying value. If you're going to take this series, you're going to take the Indiana Pacers at +210. But the Knicks are one hell of a ride to watch. Okay? Then we move on to a game that's already started. Game 1 in the books. Minnesota walks into Denver, knocks off the defending, undisputed NBA champion Denver Nuggets. And, wow, they look good doing it. What is this team? Who is this team? The Minnesota Timberwolves roll the Phoenix Suns in round 1. Phoenix came in pretty cold. But you start looking at this roster, and you start off with Anthony Edwards. 43 points. 42 minutes played. 43 points. Barely a breather for Anthony Edwards. 43 points. When it counts the most. Against the defending, undisputed NBA champions of the world, Denver Nuggets. On the road, Anthony Edwards steps up. 43 points. Now, if you're Denver, this is dangerous. This is very dangerous. You're thinking, what just happened? And the Minnesota Timberwolves scored 33 points in both the third and the fourth quarter of that game to take a stranglehold in the series. Watch out, Minnesota. But if you're going to look at the series, there is value in Denver. Was this just a one-off? Did Denver have a blip, against the Minnesota Timberwolves? So you got to decide. Is the Ant-Man and Anthony Edwards real? Which I think he's real. But is he real enough to carry this team on his back over the Denver Nuggets, who are now a +108 down 1 game in this series? So the value is absolutely the Denver Nuggets on here. +108. interesting stuff. So they're plus 108. However, if you look at the Monday night's game, the Nuggets are still 5.5-point favorites. So what do you think about that? Minnesota handled the Denver Nuggets in game 1 significantly, put up points. They had the best player on the court in game 1. And then they go into game 2 as underdogs by 5.5 points. I don't know if I'll touch that one because I do believe the value is on the Nuggets, so I'd stay away from betting the line here. 207 over under. I don't know. I'm going to stick to the series on this one, and I say the Denver Nuggets are the value now at plus money, and Nuggets will get this back on track. Will the Minnesota Timberwolves mail this in? When I say mail it in, well, they got, they look at that 1 out of 2. Bonus if they get 2 out of 2, but value to me is on the Nuggets series. So that's my call on that one. The Dallas Mavericks on Tuesday kick off their second round series against the number 1 seed, Oklahoma City Thunder, who took care of business against New Orleans Pelicans. Dallas Mavericks rolled the Clippers. If you're the Clippers and you look at that franchise, obviously Steve Ballmer, owner of the Clippers, moving into a new arena, basketball specific, billions of dollars to buy this team, puts up big money to re-sign Kawhi Leonard, and guess what? Kawhi Leonard can't play because he's, injured once again. What do you have in LA, right? James Harden, that was a nice piece to have, but really, what did he do? The same thing James Harden does in the playoffs, and that's nothing. Nothing. Maybe one good game here or there, but did he carry this team as a James Harden expectation would be that Kawhi was out helping Paul George? I don't think so. So what are the LA Clippers? Well, they're a mid-range team. They're not obviously what Dallas is. They're not an OKC. They're not a Denver Nuggets. They're a mid-range team that may have a few pieces where you might choose to pay a little extra buying a ticket when they're on the road to check them out. But that's about it. Now we go into the series with Luka and Kyrie really playing significant big-time roles, as you would expect, going into Oklahoma City. Well, what do we have here? The first game, we got game 1 Tuesday night. Oklahoma City, I think rightfully so, is a 3.5-point favorite. And for the series, what we have is OKC is minus 120 over the Dallas Mavericks with home court advantage. Does that tell me that OKC is not getting respect? Are they not getting the respect that they deserve for the season they've put together, the talent on this ball club? Are they really getting the talent? Are they really getting the respect that they deserve? Isn't that interesting? SGA, Canadian, from Toronto, possibly league MVP, or at least in the running, averaging 30 points. You tell me that he's not right there with Luka? Because Luka explodes. Things aren't going his way. He cries like a little bitch. Because that's what he does. He can be a little bitch sometimes. All right? So, Shea, SGA, I think there is serious value, even though it's at minus 120 on OKC. And maybe because of the name value, the Dallas Mavericks are maybe overrated at minus 102 compared to if OKC was the LA or New York Thunder. I don't think they get the respect that they get. And I think that this ball club is still under the radar to many in the NBA and those who are set in the line. So OKC minus 120 has got to be the play at decent juice to put some significant cheddar on it. Okay? So that's my thought there. We do obviously have a game today where the Orlando Magic and Cleveland Cavaliers play game 7 of this. I'm going to say, out of all the series, this has been the insignificant, tell me when it's over kind of series, not as the Orlando Magic and the Cleveland Cavaliers. This has not been entertaining, to say the least. This is the I could care less series. All right? This is the series where, do you really think Cleveland Orlando stand any chance going into Boston? Hell no. Hell no. So just get the series over with at 1 o'clock today. Let's get the ball rolling. Let Boston roll through you, and let's set up the Eastern Conference Final. Okay? That's the NBA story right now here on the Overrated Experience Sports and Sports Betting Podcast. I'm going to leave you with this as I transition to end the podcast. Over time, and I've brought this up a few times, some of the things I'm seeing now that it's been what? Is it 2 years now? Is it a year? I can't even recall. Where betting locally, whether it be Canada or the United States, for most markets, is illegal, but controlled by the state or the province and regulation. And you have the FanDuels of the world, the Bet365, the DraftKings, all those providers that are now in your market and taking control, trying to cover up any illegal betting out there. And one of the things I've noticed is absolutely some shady stuff. Now, I lost the article. One of the gentlemen on Twitter I followed does a good job of following the betting industry. And I wish I had it in front of me, because if you watch closely, some of the verbiage being used by the FanDuels of the world when they're talking about their investors and talking about their profit or lack of or look to increase, it is the focus of the betting providers to aim their customer base to parlays. All right? What's the term they're using? Holding. Holding value. So I'm going to come back in another podcast and talk about it. But the idea is that the belief, if I can steer you as a betting provider towards more parlay use so that the percentage goes up that the majority of bets taking are parlays versus straight up wagers, that is better for business. That is better for stock value, because they're going to do what? They're going to keep more of your money. And I think they use the word holdings or hold value or hold intake is impacted by only a certain percentage of parlays, this, and that. AKA, the more we can sweeten the pot by giving you these super boosts, these same game parlays, restrict you on what you can take and put the juice so high that you're forced to take these parlays. And keep in mind, when they put these parlays out there, they have now gotten smarter from their end to edit and drive you to parlays that you probably didn't want to take. What do I mean by that? Well, if you notice, same game parlays now compared to this time last year, you can't use all certain combinations. Let's say you're doing a soccer same game parlay. If you have a certain amount of goals you've taken, it's only going to be a certain level of corner kicks before it will accept the wager. I've noticed, especially in soccer, to talk about soccer, that to go into an EPL matchup and see the juice that they have on over 2.5 goals versus, putting over 4.5 goals and a number like a reasonable corners and shots on target is insane. It was not like that way before. Bundesliga, they've eliminated the option to put corner kicks into the same game parlay. Why are they doing that? So watch out. Keep an eye on it. And remember, the purpose of your provider is to make money and take it out of your pocket. They're not interested in paying out. They're not interested in you being good at this. They're not interested in we take gambling responsible. No. They're doing that because they have to. They're going to sweeten the pie to entice you to want to take some of these wagers that put a lot of the odds in their favor. Yeah, every so often you hit these parlays. But they are putting the leverage so far in their side of the court, that it's making it harder and harder and profitable, and it's going to get worse. Way worse. So I implore you, and I got to do this myself because I'm sticking to FanDuel at the moment just for convenience, to continue to shop around, move your money to the best provider possible, and don't get handcuffed or held hostage to those books that are going insanely focused on putting the odds totally in their favor, even though at the outset, sports gambling is on the book's favor. Okay, remember that. It always has been, always will be. They're just turning the crank even further. All right. That is the Overrated Experience Sports and Sports Betting Podcast for this week. We'll talk more as the week goes on. The pleasure's all been yours, of course. The Overrated Experience Sports and Sports Betting Podcast is over and out.